Today we're going to find out if the Jeep behind me is a true American Patriot and if it is a buy like the Louisiana Purchase or a bust like a $1.7 million toilet in San Francisco. That's right, this Jeep Patriot behind me is a 2012, has almost 150,000 miles, and today we are going to take an in-depth look at the reliability, the good, the bad, the ugly on this car and find out if it's the right fit for you. Now we're starting our tour of the outside, and I feel like the design on these is either love it or hate it. It does have some typical Jeep cues. I think it looks a little better than the old Compass, but it's not going to be a design that everybody loves. Now, you'll notice that the paint shines pretty nicely on these. I don't really have any issues other than a little bit of peeling back there on the wheel well. You guys are probably sick if you've been watching my videos talking about rust, but we absolutely have to on these. Underneath of these, one of the #1 complaints with these cars is subframes rusting. Front and rear, they actually extended the warranty, but a lot of them are already out of the extended warranty. So that is something you absolutely have to check out. You'll notice there's none around the wheel wells. Luckily, this one is fairly clean underneath, but those subframes will absolutely cost you a ton of money and more than the vehicle is worth to get fixed. So you want to have somebody go underneath of these and check them out. Otherwise, paint is nice. There's actually no rust on the wheel wells or anything like that. I have seen it a few times, but overall, this one shows pretty nicely. Now, under the hood, this 172 just blistering horsepower 2.4 liter sounds really good. It does. Doesn't leak oil, doesn't burn oil. It has been a reliable engine, and the engine themselves is decently reliable. Now, I need to make just a little note, and this vehicle does have the 5-speed manual transmission, which is also pretty reliable, but tougher to find. One interesting fact about the Jeep Patriot is this is a Dodge Caliber. It's just an SUV version of it, and is heavier and slower, and it's noticeable. But we'll talk about a little bit more of that on the test drive. Now, I don't have an automatic Jeep Patriot here to talk about that, but I feel like I have to because that's the majority. It's tough to find the manuals. Has a CVT transmission. The CVT transmission is not good. They also offer another engine in the front-wheel drive models with the CVT transmission. I'm going to try to make a separate video someday if I find one of those. So we're just going to talk about this one for today, but I want to at least let you know that the transmission, the CVT, it has typical CVT problems if you're looking at an automatic. The manual is decently reliable. Now, the reliable engine and the pretty reliable 5-speed transmission are kind of where the good ends under the hood. And we go into electrical problems. Electrical problems are a huge complaint on these cars. And it's actually tough for me to separate it out with the time that we have here together to really give you a good review. But computer issues, ground wire issues, throttle body issues, alternator, pulley and alternator itself. You'll notice some squealing, some issues there. Corrosion on the relays, in the relay fuse box, all that stuff there is issues with and causes a variety of problems for you. Sometimes it's running rough, sometimes it's lights flickering inside, sometimes it's battery draws. It's just a bunch of problems there. And now we may talk about this more on the test drive as well, but anything with rubber on these cars has the typical Chrysler problems of going bad. Control arms, motor mounts, if you notice a vibration in the engine, transmission when you're driving, a lot of times it is motor or transmission mounts. The all-wheel drive system on these is actually fairly reliable, so that's good and fairly effective. It is a Jeep, so if you need to get through snow or rough terrain, they are pretty functional for that. Now, sitting inside here, as far as day-to-day use, I actually don't hate really anything in here, and now I'm pretty used to Chrysler products, and it's very, like I said, very familiar. It is a tight feeling vehicle inside. You can tell that it's a small SUV. It feels tighter than like a Ford Escape or something like that. I don't know if the actual dimensions, like what the comparison is there, but it feels smaller inside. Now, I don't actually hate that. I think for just running around and doing your daily tasks, that's really not a problem. I don't feel terribly cramped, but it does feel small, especially if you were taking a bunch of people with you or something. Now, beyond just normal wear and tear, as far as issues inside here, this one does not have a sunroof. Big problem with the sunroofs is they leak, like a lot of sunroofs. I'm not going to fault them too hard on that. You got to keep those drains clean, but you'll notice like your lights here, you'll have water dumping through if you're in a rainstorm with those sunroofs a lot of the time. So that's something to keep an eye out for, and it will ruin your interior. Everything else kind of on the inside, as far as problems, stem from the electronic issues that are all over the vehicle. The grounds, the computers, BCM, it causes all sorts of havoc, and really is not limited to anything. So I don't know what to say exactly for wear, other than your electronics generally are going to have some problems, and you got to watch out for it. In the back seat here, you can actually see, it's kind of weird. The tub where your feet sit has really no room because of how this seat is in front, but you can move your feet up ahead, and you got plenty of legroom and plenty of headroom. So there's actually space, but the seat itself and how you have to sit your feet in here is uncomfortable. I don't know another way to say that or sugarcoat it. I would not want to sit here for a long drive. Like I could if I had to, but I don't find it comfortable at all. Everything else is extremely basic back here. It's okay, I guess, but I am not impressed with this rear seat really at all. Other than if you were tall, you could physically fit here. I just don't think it's going to be that comfortable, but you're not going to be hitting your head or your knees. So we are out on our test drive with the Jeep Patriot. Now, I always want to call this a Compass, but it is in fact a Jeep Patriot. I don't know about the nameplate because the problems it has are not very patriotic in my opinion. So, actual driving experience so far feels good. One of the big complaints that the owner of this has is that it has no get up and go, especially at higher speeds. The gearing is not right for merging on the highway or anything like that. And with only 172 horsepower in a, small, I guess, SUV, that would make sense. As far as actual driving, the suspension, everything like that feels good, but we need to talk about some of the things. So, suspension issues, like I said, everything rubber is a problem. Control arm replacement, bushings, anything that's rubber underneath this car will need to be replaced more often than it should be. Now, there is some good. The actual driving experience, I am on back roads here right now, is pretty quiet. Struts feel good. Handling feels just fine. You can kind of tell that it's built on that car platform. It feels much more like a car than it does an SUV. So I actually kind of like the driving experience. And at slow speeds, just running around here, I don't mind the power so much. Now, one of the good things about having that, smaller engine in here is the actual fuel economy is pretty good. Now, it hurts around town because it is so small and it's got to get this thing moving, but I've seen like upwards into the high 20s out on the highway. I think the average is somewhere around 23, which is, it's not great, but it's respectable for an SUV. Out on the highway now, I am putting it down. We're in 4th gear and it has just about nothing. Not fast at all. But as far as actual just cruising around, I don't hate it. It feels pretty good. Oh yeah, fifth has nothing, which is fine. But we're just going up a slight incline right now, and we're slowing down. Some of the other things, I guess, suspension-wise that I did see, but I don't know exactly how common they are. They didn't pop up as much as wheel bearing and like ABS issues. Usually an ABS issue is the wheel bearing. And so that's something else to keep an eye out for if you go on a test drive and you notice a loud humming sound. You got some wheel bearings, especially then if the ABS light is along with that sound. I guess my final thoughts on the drive is that the driving experience is actually okay. I wouldn't call it amazing, but it drives a little bit better than I would think that it would. And like, I don't like how Wranglers drive. Obviously, they're a lot more off-road focused and a completely different animal. But in comparison to another Jeep, it drives pretty good. We made it back from our test drive, and now it is time to decide if this is a buy or if it's a bust. You may know which direction I'm leaning on this guy, and you're probably right. This particular one with the manual, which is harder to find, and the 2.4 liter engine, which is decently reliable, decent fuel mileage, 4-wheel drive, works great. This vehicle lives on a very steep hill that is almost unplowable, and it gets up at no problem in the winter with the snow. So I gotta give the credit where it's due, and it does those things well. I love the size of them, actually. But then the negatives, unfortunately, like the suspension wears out. The frame rusts, even though this one's okay. The electrical problems probably are the nail in the coffin. I would never buy an automatic with the CVT, but the manual does help. And then the price comes in somewhere around $4,000, depending on where you are in the country and the condition of the car. So today, I think we got to name this guy a bust. I really wanted to like this car because I like the size and some of those things about it, but there's the potential for just too many negatives. Even though this is probably the most reliable setup you could get in this, like this configuration, and it's running good. There's, like no issues with it right now. The potential that has been so prevalent out there for these issues, I just can't ignore. So if you're looking at one, I'm declaring it a bust. Let me know your thoughts down below. If you agree, disagree, that's all right.
Yeah. Please tell me that I can't, that I won't, that I fail, that I'll never make it out, yeah. Please tell me all the bad, never good, fill my head full of every single doubt, yeah. Please say any negative thoughts, I pop off when I hear people say I cannot. I get off to the thought of proving everyone wrong, I won't stop to the top, so you better back